Good evening. Thank you all for coming. I'd like to welcome you to the Winthrop Town Council meeting. Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. We're in the Harvey Hearing Room. It's currently 6:30. Call the meeting to order. Roll call vote, please.
Counsel Tassinari.
Here.
Counsel Costigan. Counsel Munson.
Here.
Counsel DeMarco.
Here.
Counsel Aiello.
Here.
Counsel Swope. Here. Counsel DeRoss. Vice President Belcher.
Here.
President Lettieri.
Here. Please rise for the pledge and remain standing after the pledge, led by Councilor Swope.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for 1 minute. I'd just like to take a moment of silence for all the victims of the hurricane, terrible weather down south, Florida, the Carolinas, Georgia. It's just a terrible occurrence. We've lost over 128 people so far, and just sending prayers to their families. Take a minute, please. Thank you.
President Lettieri, can I ask for another moment of silence for all the victims of the Middle East with everything that's going on right now? That we send another 30 seconds for the members of the Middle East.
Thank you. Minutes from September 17th, meeting have been circulated. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second. Motion by Vice President Belcher, second by Councilor Tassinari. Any discussion on it? And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Abstain.
Abstention? 2 abstentions. General information recommendations, we have 2 tonight. First, I'd like Mr. John Morgan, who is here to talk about White Cane Month. John has been discussing this for years, and it's a special year this year, I think, with an anniversary of this coming up. John, would you like to speak about this?
Yes, thank you, Council President. John Morgan, Precinct 4. October is White Cane Awareness Month. I'd just like to start off with something different. My trip down here this evening it was very interesting, and I'm happy that I could make it. But as a blind person, I was taught to use my cane in a way that was at the safest of possibilities. I did not follow that rule this evening. I got distracted and I ended up in the middle of the street. Fortunately, there was someone there that said, hey, you know where you are? And I said, no. I said, you're in the middle of the street. I just want to put that out before I talk about the white cane. Everyone has an obligation to their safety. This is an important tool. This is a white cane. It is not a stick, although some people call it. This identifies a person who is blind. Almost every country in the world. If you travel a lot, if you see someone with a white cane, that indicates that that person is blind. Also, there's a white cane law, which our own Jerry DeFranza from Winthrop actually wrote and got passed at the State House back in the late 90s. That is Chapter 90, Section 14A, which states if you see a person with a white cane or a guide dog attempting to cross in a crosswalk, you must stop. I'm asking this because it doesn't happen all the time. And the more people know about the white cane law, hopefully the more people will obey it. Jerry did a lot of work on this. He spent years of his own time, and he got it passed basically by himself. And I'm here to follow in Jerry's footsteps as best I can, although Jerry's feet are much smaller than mine. October 15th is the 60th anniversary Cane Day. President Lyndon Johnson in 1964 made a proclamation making October 15 White Cane Day, and this is the 60th anniversary. And we have come a long way, but we still have some distance to go to get the education to people to know what a white cane is, and for myself, how to use it. I don't want to be a hypocrite. I take my walking very seriously, and when I screw up, I let myself know it. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but right now I'm running out of here. So thank you for this time.
Thank you, John, and
John, we'll recognize it next meeting.
thank you for your words of wisdom, and thank you for all you do for us, for our town. You're always there for us.
And thank you to Jerry DeFranza.
Yes. Now we have with us members of the Board of Health, Jeannie Maggio, Mary Lou Cooney, and we also have Lisa Stefano, our clerk of the Board of Health here, and I'd like to give the floor to Jeannie to talk about some upcoming changes to the Board of Health.
Okay. The Board of Health is basically a rules and regulation kind of an organization. And we have decided to sort of expand that. The first thing I want to do is really introduce our members. I'm Jeannie Maggio. I've been an educator in Winthrop for over 30 years. I was also working for the health department at one time, and I was also on their Board of Health for over 11 years. I also am the coordinator for the Medical Reserve Corps. I'm going to let Mary Lou Cooney introduce herself.
Mary Lou Cooney. I'm a retired PA. I was a PA for 35 years, and I had many positions, some of them overseas, and have a lot of experience there. But this is our guru. I've been on the MRC for 20 years, and Jean has been responsible for guiding that organization and doing all the valuable things that she does. So I'm a newbie on the Board of Health, so I'm going to follow Jean's whatever she tells me.
I'm Lisa Stefano. I was born and raised in Winthrop. I am a teacher in Lowell right now. I was on the MRC too, for a long time. And I used to work in the old Board of Health upstairs, the health department, when Rita was there. And that's all.
Thank
And I'm
you.
proud to say Lisa is one of my students, and so is Belcher.
And also mention Christine.
Students doing good things.
And please mention Christine Riley, who's
I am.
unable to. Okay, so.
I would not forget.
Anna was one of your students? Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
I'm allowed to say that.
Christine Riley is actually, she's been on the Board of Health, she still is technically on the Board of Health, and she is our chair. She's away on vacation, which we're happy for, but she will be back. Our first meeting will be next Tuesday. Now, some of the changes that we're going to do is we're gonna hold our meetings in the Harvey Room, but at 3:30 in the afternoon. And the reason we're going to do that is because we feel we're also going to expand it to have guest speakers who in some way are affiliated with health and other things that relate to health. For example, our two inspectors, Sharon Sicarello and Al, we want to make sure that the milk you take out of the store is at the right temperature. Al makes sure that the restaurants that you eat out of are healthy and safe. And we want people to come to these meetings to give a presentation, to talk about the different things that affect the health of our community. We're also going to have Meredith Hurley, who is a gift to this town, and she will talk about health issues. I intend to invite Mr. Marino, he doesn't know that yet, and our fire chief and our police chief, and they don't know that yet, and our animal control officer, because those are things that all have to do with the health and welfare of the community. Denise, who is another gift, is going to help us with the Zoom, and also we're going to have it televised by WCAT. So those who can't come to the meeting at 3:30 in the afternoon will have the ability to see it later on when WCAT runs it. We welcome people to come to the meeting. We always have an open area for the public to come in, to express things, to complain about things, to offer information that we may not be aware of. So we're trying to expand the role of the Board of Health to not just be sort of little, sometimes there's roles and issues that are sometimes kind of deep. We want to do it in a way that's more efficient and more open for people to understand it. So basically, that's what we're trying to do as the new board.
Thank you so much, Jeannie, I appreciate it, and having 2 new members out of the 3, it's a daunting task, and, but I appreciate it, and I know we've talked about how you wanted to change things up, and I think it's a fantastic idea, so we appreciate all the years of service you've given to the town.
I want to also say thanks to Bill Schmidt and Jean Holgerson, because they were very active members and did a lot of work on the Board of Health, and I want to make sure that they're recognized for the work that they did.
100%.
Thank you, Jeannie. Any questions for Jeannie? Thank you guys so much.
We're making it easy today.
They'll be coming. Thank you.
You won't mind if we leave?
Happy to drive you home.
Don't be offended.
Public comment.
All right, Nancy.
Public comments. Yes, Mr. Dow.
Jack Dow, Precinct 1. I'm concerned, and I haven't looked at the agenda for this month, that the Intergovernmental Strategy Committee has not met this month. I'm concerned about them having a meeting scheduled. I'm not sure if it is or not. Maybe someone can answer that question if they'd like. It's a very important endeavor for this strategy group. And it was said that it's very important on a number of occasions. I'm sure that people in the town would like to know how far advanced we are in contracting with Mass Water Resource and Massport. There's a lot of money involved. I'd like more people to get interested in this, to question and try to find out where the minutes are for these meetings, so that the rest of the people in the town can be informed. I'm sure a lot of people want to know this information, but so far, we don't have it. I don't know whether these meetings are not held for a reason, whether they're executive session meetings, and I think there was one executive session meeting, not positive. And when are those minutes going to be revealed? What's going on with the strategy committee? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dowd.
Is that us? Would you like us to speak now?
Whoever would like to speak, Colleen?
All right, so my name is Chevy, I write 55 Marsh 55 Fairview. I just want to know what is going on down there. Every time there's rain, I can't sleep. Like last weekend, we had a wedding to go to, and Jim and Gina here, they right behind us, so we constantly checking the tide, where's the water's coming from. We can't sleep, I can't go anywhere, I have to, we had a wedding to go to last weekend. I almost canceled it because I'm so afraid that the water's gonna come up. And you notice when you drove by my property, we have all these sandbags ready to go. I mean, we have about over 200 sandbags ready to go. It's a lot of physical work. And basically, we went out and bought our own sandbag and bought our own supplies. Now, the sandbag, I left it out there because I don't know when the high tide is coming up, and I have to be ready. Now, wear and tear, now I have to replace all the sandbag again, to refill it and get it ready for the next month. I mean, I need everybody help in the town. What's there that you can do to help us down there?
That is on the agenda, again, just to keep it on the agenda. Obviously, there's no easy fix. We have had some talks with pretty substantial price tag, but it's not the price tag that's avoiding anything, it's just the time and to make sure we're doing it right. I'm gonna ask the town manager to speak about it a little bit later, so we could answer your question more in depth.
Meanwhile, what can I do? I mean, what can you do to help me a little bit?
Weren't we supposed to get sandbags from,
I'm gonna ask town
Yeah.
manager to speak off that, but not during public comment, but we will be discussing those.
all right, well, she might have to go because she's having a baby. Her son's
Okay.
having They're having a baby.
That's a good thing,
She has
that's a
to get
good
it
thing.
off her chest. She
Congratulations.
got here,
So I can already, I just wanna hear
She's
what
gonna
other
hang,
people.
but
We'll
in case
try
she
to get
gets
it
that
as
call,
quickly
you
as
know why she
possible.
bolted out
Thank
the
you.
door. It's not because she's mad at you.
Any other public
You
comments?
know, like I said, I have the camera in the driveway. I have to watch constantly when I'm at work. Me too. I'm on at
I
work.
couldn't
here.
come to your meeting last
My
week, Jim,
stomach
because I
was
couldn't get out my
turning.
driveway. It was a
Yeah.
nice sunny day.
Yep.
But there's no check valves on those drains, none whatsoever.
It was fine.
We know that for a fact because the water comes up on sunny days. We need
And we will
those.
discuss this. We will discuss this during this meeting.
This poor girl lost her house in 18 too, completely. There's more people coming, and you know what? We're up to here with it. You guys gotta do something. Somehow, some way. We pay our taxes too, we are part of this
And
town.
flood insurance that they don't even do.
Not only that, but now we have Governor's Park open 24/7, and it's nothing but a speedway. So now they're coming, pushing the water through the house. Yes, that's great, I get it. It needs to be open for the time that they're working on the street up there. Not all night, not all day. I am putting up with more crap down there than you know of. I get up at 4 in the morning to go to the gym. I got homeless people coming out of the gym. I clean the gym. Homeless people coming out, standing there, looking in my car at 4 in the morning. You guys have no clue what's going down there. It's horrible, it's horrible.
They don't leave the.
You just have to recognize yourself. Just please recognize, just say your
Colleen
name. I know,
Costa,
Colleen
84 Bank
Yes.
Street. But there's a lot going on down there, Jim, that no one even knows about.
No, I appreciate it.
There's a lot of people down there that, I don't know where they came from. That guy came out of the marsh with a duffel bag and something else in his hand at 4 in the morning. So now I no longer go there at 4 in the morning. I refuse. So, it's dangerous down there now. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Smitty?
Yeah, I'm Jim Smith. I live on the corner of Martin and Reed Street. Same problem with flooding and all, but my question is, about 5 years ago, we came to a dozen meetings, and the board at the time stopped a guy from building on the corner of Fairview and Martin. You guys shot it down, and we thought we won something. At least he had to comply with a dwelling that you would be satisfied with, and he didn't. Right now, he's got a crane in there, they're digging the holes, and they're gonna start screwing piles in and put steel beams across, and they're gonna build. It's owned by Capital Waste, I believe, now. It was the man that owned the donut shop there. What was his name? Satino. How did they get a permit or whatever? From what I understand, they went to Boston and got it. They went around you. And I'm just saying, are we wasting meetings because Boston can control Winthrop? You know? Maybe I'm all wrong about this. But the equipment's there, and I know the guy that's digging the hole. And he says they're going ahead, they're building. So, I'm just wondering what's going on.
Thank you. My understanding is the permits did come from Winthrop. The plan that was rejected a few years back, like you said, 4 or 5 years ago, was different construction than what they're doing now. There's a major easement in the middle of that property also that the town has. But I'll get more specifics in if you want to either give me a call or get me your contact info. I'll get you the exact specifics as to what's being done. I'll get you a copy of the plans. But I know it's different than what was proposed several years ago.
I've been looking in the transcript, for, when he comes to get a meeting here again, to try and get it, and he's never come back. So, the word was that he went to Boston. You know, you get capital management, if he owns it, he's got a lot of power. And they're building.
All right, thank
And
you.
there's a woman that's not here tonight. She's never gonna see the sun again, because they're gonna build higher than her house. And about 2 inches from her fence, which when I put my shed up next to Tippy, I asked permission to build it by the owner of her house, and I put it 5 feet like I was supposed to off his property. They're going right to the street. They wanted a hardship variance from us and just shot it down. And I think the conservation people shot it down. But if they can go around and do this, what's the sense of being at a meeting trying to get you to help us with water and sewerage and everything else if we can't get it, you know, if we're not heard?
Thank you.
That's it for me.
Yes.
I'm the other half, the better half, no, that's all right. And that was the Conservation Committee that we were sitting with for days and years about that property. However, I'm just gonna say that one of the biggest problems that we have is speed. And you know, and I know, because we read the transcript, it's all over town. People have no respect for stop signs, red lights, so what happens is, because we watch out for each other, that the water rises at our corner, probably about this much. When it's really bad, we can see it coming over the Pavilion Marsh area, right? On the corner, comes up and over the sidewalk, and then you know that we're really in trouble. Because you've got water in the gully, in our gully, it's different than down where
Right,
so
yeah.
there she is. And
By that time, I'm drowned.
it's 6 of one and half of the other. So what I usually end up doing, because I'm telling Chippy, I'll call. So I call the DPW, and they've been wonderful. But if it's a Friday night, Saturday, they're not in business unless you get a, call, do this, do that. So I call the police department, and they've been very good. But it's basically, we need barriers. So we put barriers, they come and put barriers up to stop the speeders, because it's the speeders that go through and slush all Tippy's water right down into her basement. And I don't wanna say anything about us, we've been lucky so far, but regardless, we've had people stuck in that water on the corner. And I have to say, it's all about speed. So when there's a huge tide, wind, and lots of rain, this all is impacted, the whole of Morton Street. And I think that whomever is in charge of cutting the greenery right now, I don't know if it's DCR, DPW, because I get different responses, and I'm very respectful, that's okay. But it seems much better that we have all this greenery, that they're not cutting it all down. You've said that for years.
Cleaning the area.
And anyway, I just wanted to say that speed is the big thing, and if you put the cones up and the people can't come around and slosh, they have no regard. They just come flying through this water, and it goes everywhere, right, into your houses and what have you.
They don't care.
And it's all over town. My own pylons. So, that's all.
Thank you.
very much.
Anything on Zoom?
Yes, yep. One hand raised. Nicholas Agri? Yes.
I live on Morton Street. I'm also going to speak about the flooding real quick. Couple comments, there were some questions which I will be addressed later. At the beginning of this year, I started keeping tabs on every tide that came up through the sewers into the street. I kept tabs on both this flooding that just went in the street and also flooding that crossed the street from Wilshire to Colleen's house, basically, at Morton Street. people safe from riding the roads. Thank you.
Thank you, and we will address most of those questions shortly. Any other,
No, we're good.
anyone else? All right, public hearing, we have none. Correspondence, Denise?
Okay, I do have. Scott Mahoney Wright had written a letter. He was asking the town council to restore civility in our community in reference to 3A. Joanne Nuzzo, Robert Pacey, Nita Pacey were all asking the town council to vote no on 3A and to consider including Seal Harbor in the designated zoning areas. We have the condition on Euro Beach with these three, Karina Boncory, Nicole Gregor, and Tracy Talent, are very disappointed in the condition of Euro Beach. That's it.
Thank you. School department did meet last week. Discussion about enrollment, how we're getting into October now, so they get the first real, more accurate numbers of enrollment. Enrollment in Winthrop Public Schools is up to 2008, which is the highest they've had in several years. And my understanding is there's still upwards of mid to high 20s about to be coming in or going through the process. So the numbers keep increasing. And there's also talk of the override, talk of staffing, which they are pretty much at a good level for staffing now. And as the year gets started, it's so far so good. Town managers report.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Update on the, we'll get to the ordinance in a minute, but update on the stormwater design over in, Charleston, Girlstone, and Pico. The council authorized the additional $79,500 for phase 1 of that stormwater design. They have started the hydrology work over there, and they're getting going on that at Woodard and Curran. So we don't have an anticipated end date yet, but they are working on it. They've started the process. They've given the authorization, signed the contract, so they're ready to go on phase 1. Once that's done, phase 2, as outlined, in the original scope of work that we got, is about $160,000 for the next phase. So if we don't hear back from the, from the grant, the WRDA grant that we have in, and I checked in with Congresswoman Clark's office today with Wade Blackman. He was checking on it, but he hasn't heard yet because of the delay in getting the federal government budget approved. I think it was pushed off recently to December, so they're not close yet, but that's what we're hoping for. So, but if we don't get that, then, obviously we're up to the council to decide if we want to move forward with that next phase and, keep that work going. That would get the preliminary design done of the work that we need to do down there, which will get us closer to getting a number and, getting some ideas on what the stormwater fix will be down there to alleviate the flooding concerns there. Part of that work will also be at the Pico Ave area. At least we'll be dressing the seawall. As everybody knows, that seawall is mostly concrete, but then it turns to wood slats, halfway down. So that'll be, part of that work will be increasing that seawall to get it up to the same height all the way down, and that will help alleviate some of the flooding down there as well. And then lastly, I know we were working with Northeast Mosquito Control. They're still waiting to hear back from the Army Corps. They anticipated hearing back this fall so they could go in and deal with the dredging work and some of the upkeep they have to do down there in that marshy area. That will help alleviate some of the flooding concerns as well, because it'll pull a lot of the debris out of there and things like that. They will do that work in the wintertime if they get approval in the fall, so they'll get it done this winter. That's what's going on there. Euro Beach update. We do have the draft plan just about complete. We were going back and forth with DEP on a final few things. We will set up a meeting upcoming, if not next weekend, maybe the weekend after, but we're looking for maybe for next weekend. It is Columbus Day weekend, so I don't know. We're gonna see if we can get access and maybe set it up, but we're gonna maybe shoot for then to have the consultant come in, give an update on the plan, break down where the, where the new coastal dune will be, and that'll help with the stormwater protection. As I talked about, it's gonna go up against the seawall. And we have to make sure we get the grass planted, but one of the important things is we have to get the size of the material size, so the certain sand has to go out there to match up with the, same size material that's on the beach, so we have to make sure we get that. And then we can order the material and then have our guys, go along and, put it along the seawall and give it some storm protection, to storm, protect against the high tide. So, to be clear, that'll that's phase one, right, get the beach management plan done, but then we have to get into what's called an administrative consent order with DEP, which will basically be for the next 5 years, and that'll be to monitor the work we do down there, and then decide if we wanna do additional work, to some sort of beach management plan or beach Reno restoration, but again, that'll come down to money, how much can we pull out, put new sand in there, stuff like that, but, that's stuff we can look into, but I'm not sure about funding sources at this point for that, but I know that's been a lot of the complaints out there as well with the rocks and the debris and the seaweed and stuff like that, so, we will have a meeting though before, nothing's been finalized yet, so the residents will see the plan before we agree to it and then sign the administrative consent order and move forward with that, so. Lastly, on Morton and Banks, I don't have a delivery date yet, but we are ordering the, sandbags. We reached out to the company, they're just getting back to us, let's see when they can put the order together. We're looking at getting, I think, 2 or 3 pallets. I did meet out there with, the conservation chair, and we could probably deliver them on during the week, and then, get together with people on the weekend and try to get some volunteers and go down and move them around, so we can help and alleviate some of the concerns that we're having down there. Steve is getting pricing for putting the flapper valves on. As I talked about at a prior meeting, we don't have the space to do it right at the street, the culverts aren't big enough, so we need to go on the other side of the sidewalk and do them in the grassy area but build a brand new culvert, because the pipe that's in there is too small, so we'll have to build something in there to actually install the flapper valve. Steve is working on getting pricing for that, which will alleviate, at least once we get them in, the water coming back from the ocean, which will help with some of the flooding, certainly not all the water that rushes over the marsh, but, so that's where we stand there. We will get the sandbags, for the winter, and that will help, but we do have a meeting tomorrow. I've got a Teams meeting, with the EEA, the organization that actually, awarded the MVP grants, and find out why we didn't get it, and also find out what the next steps are to get in for FY26 funding. And that's the goal, is to get in for the next round and make sure we're in. They assured us we could via email, so hopefully we can, get some clarification on that and find out exactly when we have to have our application in by. And that will hopefully get us back in the queue and get us that, 1.2 that we want to get the design done, which it's looking like it's gonna be an earth berm, all along there to, raise it up to elevation 10, which will help us stop the, water from coming over the marsh. Mosquito work, survey update, we've got about 370 or so responses so far. Right now, it's leaning a little bit, almost 50-50, about 58-42, with Pauline Street being in the lead at this point. The preferred site, but again, we're still gonna leave it open for another, 3 or 4 weeks, try to get more responses. We'd like to get to 1,000 responses to kind of get a more accurate, update from the residents, so, for anybody who hasn't filled it out, please do. The link's all over the place, our website, social media, and it's got a QR code on there. And if you need help, both the library and the senior center, if anybody, isn't tech savvy, they'll be able to help you, work that, do it on your phone or whatever, they can guide you through that process. And certainly open to any questions the council or others may have.
And thanks, Steve, for being here tonight with us also. Maybe you could help us out with some of this. Just back to the flapper valves there. Is that at multiple locations? What's the time frame on doing something like that? If Steve can.
Yeah, so we're working with the engineer right now to really identify the locations. We suspect there's 6 outfalls along that corridor. Unfortunately, they're all buried. They're all, none of them daylight, so they're all, in the mud of the marsh. And the one that we have located, which is at the end of Willis Street, is the old corrugated pipe. So I suspect all the rest of them are similar material. It's deteriorated pipe. So what we would be looking to do is identify them all, go on the marsh side of each outfall, and cut in a new chamber big enough to accommodate the flapper valve, which is much like we did down on Pleasant Street across from Girdlestone. It works great, but it's a lot of work. But what everybody's explaining and seeing is what's happening. The water is, and the speaker was correct, anything near a 10-foot tide is coming up out of the storm drains. So the first step is the backflow preventers, but it's not just go down there and install them.
Yeah, but we've been asking for them, Steve, since 2018, so you have to understand.
Excuse me.
I understand, it's not Steve Carroll that's not doing it, it's
But you
it's
told me
funding.
there was valves there.
I
It's not
I
Steve's
don't even,
fault.
I never talked to him.
right.
Okay,
So,
but that's the sequence of the work, we'll, you know, identify the location, dig down behind them, install the chambers, fix the deteriorated pipe, and, you know, and stop the tide water from coming in, step one. And then, as the manager discussed, the next phase would potentially be a berm at some point in time to also stop the you know, the tidal surges coming up and over. So you get double component down there that you have to deal with. It's not a small issue to fix, it's a major undertaking, we will get pricing on it. And that's the best update I can give you.
right, and just for, I mean, a ballpark timeframe on just identifying the 6 areas and getting a price and then potentially getting that done.
Yeah, we'll have everything identified and flagged this month, that's the goal. And then, knowing the condition of things, we're not gonna know until we start digging things up and trying to install. Getting a price on something like that is very, very difficult because there's a lot of unknowns. We could certainly price out the material, that's easy. It's, you know, the time involved to do what we have to do. And it's not just, you know, you're dealing with tides as well, so you got a short window of work to get things done, you know, in between tide cycles, so it's a major undertaking, but we will certainly.
So we're hoping by the end of the month, we'll have some idea of what we're working with and some sort of better timeframe
That's
as
what we're
then to
hoping
get to
do,
the next
yeah.
phase.
Well, at least flagged and we can start out, you know, at least an inspection dig and go from there.
We'll start from here and move our way down. Counselor Swope, any questions?
Thanks, Tony. Do you think that the citizens there will see relief from the water coming into their basement by, any idea?
Well, the goal, that's the goal with the sandbags, right? I mean, it's not gonna stop, I mean, it's such a long line, like you can't cap it at both ends, right? You know, a perfect bag wall would go the whole length of the street, but it's 1,000 linear feet, and there's no way to cap at the ends to get it back to the marsh, so the thought was is bring the sandbags in. It's a temporary fix, it's not, you know, gonna help all of the
But it's
situation.
going around
But
the
it would,
homes,
around the
right?
homes, correct,
Yeah.
to stop those, slow the water down and, you know, to not allow it to get into their basements or help stop it from getting in their basements. So that's the goal of the sandbags.
I understand that you, another topic, you worked on McGee's Corner.
That's been fixed, I can let Steve give an update on that.
Steve, can you talk about that?
Yeah, they made a temporary repair. It appears to be functioning. I tested every button myself and it did trigger the pedestrian light. What worries me a bit is also the lights were initiating without the buttons being activated. So I'm trying to discuss with Daigle Electric, who's the one that the contractor brought in, to understand why it's also intermittently cycling on its own. I'm guessing it was the only wires they had to work with, and just the way the relay works and the controls, that's kind of a function of it. It's not the worst thing, it just will potentially hold traffic there a little bit longer if nobody's looking to cross the street.
When you are confident that we have it fixed, I'm wondering if you could put it on the website, Tony, that it is working, and however else we can make sure that people know that it's working. I understand that the audio will not come in until the TIP project is set up to do that, so there won't be any audio on it. But I think it's a good idea to mention it. It's been a while since it's worked, so we need to find a way to advertise the fact that it.
I mean, it can be advertised as functioning now. I don't believe that there's much more that they're gonna be able to do any more to it. They made a temporary repair, utilizing certain wires in that network of what they could use to create the loop. And like I said, all buttons do trigger it. It's just why it intermittently cycles on its own. But again, it's not gonna endanger a pedestrian. If anything, it's gonna give more of a crossing time.
Yeah, and since so many kids cross there and they didn't think it was working, that means the kids psych it out. So if they think they can get across before the car hits them, so they have to also learn to use that.
Well, I mean, they're crossing at the red lights. They're waiting for the red lights and they're crossing.
Yeah,
They're not just
kinda,
running across the
sometimes.
street.
It's, if you can advertise it, Tony, I think it would be important. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Counselor Aiello.
I wasn't sure, did you raise
We're
your
just
hand
going all the way
before?
around.
Oh, you're
We're
just
just
going
gonna
this
go.
way, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go on this circuit. Steve, a couple of questions, if I may, on, just trying to figure out orders of magnitude of costs that we're facing across all these projects. On the stormwater flaps that you talked about, do you have any sense of just a rough range at this point, that can you have one at the end of the month? You know, are we talking 500,000, are we talking 3 million? I think that's helpful for us in terms of budget planning here, because,
Yeah, certainly, like I said, it's easy to put a price on,
Yeah.
on the materials.
yeah,
It's gonna be I mean, this is something that's gonna go out to bid. This isn't something that the DPW is gonna
yeah,
be installing behind, could just, it's a major job. It's gonna potentially involve sheathing being dropped down behind these and pumping tide water, right? I mean, it's a very low-lying area. Groundwater's right there, 2 feet below the ground, so it's almost, like, I don't know if anybody saw the landing revetment work being done way back when, and they're building the boat ramp. They build a revetment around. Same thing at the Lewis Lake tide gate when we did that. Gotta build a revetment, and then you gotta pump that water out to create a dry environment so that you can do the work.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
this isn't a small undertaking by any means, and it's.
Oh, no, I appreciate the size of it, but it would be good just for, sort of start figuring out if we need to move money around to start getting, I assume you need some engineering money to be able to put something together that contractors then can bid on, but any dollar values that you can give us at the end of the month would be greatly appreciated on that. Related issue on Morton Street, in the last MVP report we got on the berm as an alternative, did that report provide an order of magnitude cost for what they thought that was going to take?
Yeah, they brought it up at the climate meeting, anywhere from 12 to 18 million, but they couldn't, get any tighter than that without designing it. So.
About that, 12 to 18 million, okay. On the 178,000 for both Girdlestone and Pico for the stormwater, as well as the piece of seawall, when do you think, if we can't come up with the state or federal money for that, at what point in time would this council be faced with finding that 178
Trying to get
grants?
the other work done. I mean, we haven't got a time frame from Woodard and Curran yet. They just started like I said, the hydrology work. So
Okay.
I'll try to get for the next meeting, I'll try to get an idea of when that's
Yeah,
gonna happen.
that would be good as well, because, I mean, one of the things I think we need to do is to sort of, if all this stuff is gonna be expenditures that are gonna be happening, say, November through March of next year, we might as well see them all and try to sort of make a sense of a strategic approach to seeking grant funding ideally, and then those pieces which we need to self-fund when grants aren't coming in on time or we get rejection on grants, that'll give us a more comprehensive sense of what we're going. And then the last element on Morton Street is on speeding, and I know it's when the water floods and all that, but are there any mechanisms we can employ that can cause people to
We do put out the
slow down or
barricades. Steve's
whatever,
crew's really good about that. I mean, they call, we get them out. I know,
Yeah.
they'll text Jim will text me, and we get them, right out right away. Other than that, closing that gate at Governor's Park, I did have a conversation with the management company. Before the work started, they were keeping it closed a little more often, but I'll call them again and let them know, like, other than when road work's going on, that should be closed. So that was, we let them know that's for secondary emergency egress, and it shouldn't be just open all the time, 24/7. So
Okay.
I'll follow up with them.
Yeah, and if the police could be asked to sort of check it when the construction shuts down to make sure that gate is locked, that would
Yep.
give you a secondary assurances.
Sure.
All right.
Maybe we could even have the police department go down there even on a nice day on a regular basis, just to get into the habit of making sure
Yeah.
that those doors are locked,
I'll
those
talk to
gates are
you.
locked,
Yeah.
instead of waiting until, we need them
Yeah.
locked,
Yep.
to make sure that they are locked. Counselor DeMarco?
Yeah, so it's funny, I started on the council in 2019. My first day was actually July 2nd on the council in 2019. I talked with Austin that day, and I made an emergency motion to rebuild the Arthur T. Cummings Park. An emergency motion, all right? It was $200,000. Why can't we do that towards Morton Street? Why can't we start working on the problem and throw money at it?
We are working on the problem, but, you know, this isn't a playground, and we can't just, you know, 200,000 will be a drop in the bucket, as you heard with the numbers being thrown around, so we've got to identify, there'll be bonding involved. You'd probably have to go for debt exclusion if we are not able to get grant
We don't
money.
need a debt exclusion. We have the money.
$12 million
No,
you
don't
need a
have
debt
$12
exclusion.
million.
I'm talking about 200,000.
What's
Yeah, but
two hundred
that's not
thousand
gonna
get
do
you?
anything. This
It's,
isn't,
it's gonna start. It's a
gonna
start.
what? We're starting.
we're starting.
What are we starting?
Thank you.
Prices.
Vice
all I
President Belcher.
Thank you. Thank you for touching on all of the areas of flooding that we're seeing. We Tileston, Girlstone, Morton, Pico, and Ural Beach as well. It's a lot to think about in dollars and cents, and I want to make sure that the council is prepared to do everything we can to start making moves where we can. I know it's not easy and it's a lot of money, but if we could get a comprehensive look at all of these projects and rough estimates, I know we don't have real numbers, but that would be really helpful for me at least to look and kind of think about it. But I think while we're working on the long-term solutions to all these areas, we need to come up with some short-term solutions. We're heading into the winter, it's inclement weather, and this isn't solely on you or you, Director Cal. There's a lot of people who need to be consulted to think about this, but I think we need to think about it now. People shouldn't have to come to meetings to tell us that they can't leave their homes. It's a little concerning, and, yeah.
She's right.
And specifically for Ural Beach, I'm from Precinct 3, so what we're seeing with the beach management plan is people concerned that we're gonna get to a point like that, where we're afraid to leave during high tides. And so I think we need to kind of take a very global approach to this townwide. And I think you're doing a great job of doing that, but I think we just need to dig a little bit deeper, just so we can be prepared to move when it's relevant. So that's all. Thank you.
Council Munson.
Thank you, Council President. I appreciate the updates. Hoping that more people can answer that firehouse survey. I did ask for a roll call of opinions from the council last meeting on the firehouse to see if we could just at least express where our studied opinion might actually be beneficial to the citizens, but I don't think that was happening, or that happened. I'd still like that to happen. I personally feel Walden Street would be advantageous because it leaves Pauline Street open for more development and for more opportunities that are revenue generating. It also facilitates and fixes a few things on that corner, including the pickup drop-off, and I think it's a win-win, and plus the basketball will be upgraded and moved in a nearby location, so I think it's a win-win. But that's just the firehouse. I did want to ask about, in line with what Aiello and Belcher both brought up, some of these efforts that can be made right away. I appreciate the bags. I think that's important to get it out there on the manager's blog and the transcript so that more people can get on there and help. I mean, I can't imagine Tippy trying to do 200 bags by herself. That to me is not fair, not right. We do need to come together as a community. There's a bunch of stuff that we can do, and I appreciate the situation we're in. Steve can't just say, hey guys, let's go out there and find those valves and fix them today. That would be, unfeasible, but we can do other stuff. One of the things that I was going to ask you was, if our long-term solution is a berm, what's to stop us from taking some of the earth that's out there and making our own berm temporarily? I understand there's water that comes down from the hill, and there's water that's coming up from at the high tide. But when water's coming in from the ocean and the marsh, what's to stop us from building a temporary berm?
DEP, yeah, all sorts of wetland requirements. I mean, there's a whole bunch. The permitting is probably the largest chunk of the design and getting bids, so that's.
So that that DEP and that permitting is part of the money that we allocated already for the design, the phase one?
No, that's, you're over in Tilestone and Girdlestone, that's, Tilestone and Girdlestone, this is Morton and Banks is what you're talking about.
So then we're looking, we have not.
Well, that was part of the MVP grant application that we didn't get.
I just wanna hear super loud and clear, the MVP grant goes directly towards flood mitigation.
Yeah, in the Morton Banks area, yeah, that was the application, yeah.
Okay, and so because of us not complying with 3A, we have the
No.
potential to lose that indefinitely?
Right now, there's no proof that that's what happened, I mean, that's
Right, she
been,
wrote us a
that's
letter
been
saying that
conjecture.
it had nothing to do with 3A.
Right.
Because we're not in non-compliance, we're still within the rules. But if we don't comply, the people that are here telling us that they're living daily and in a state of anxiety and threat to their homes are going to be forced to deal with this without the money from the state.
Yeah, without compliance with 3A, that's one of the grants that's listed in the guidelines, correct? That could be impacted, yes.
So the state doesn't care about us.
It's so weird,
Right?
so
I mean,
awful.
I said it usually you didn't have to.
I just wanted to reiterate what Councilor Aiello said. We can mitigate the speed problem by just having the police and others make sure that that gate is closed. It's not just an if, but it needs to, And then I think that that's it for now. Thank you.
Councilor Tassinari?
Manager Marino, thank you and your team for getting that survey up on the, for the firehouse. I took it, it's pretty straightforward. I picked Walden Street as well, mostly because of the lower price tag. $4 million actually makes a difference when you're going out for debt exclusion, makes a difference on what we're gonna pay on interest, and it makes a difference on what everyone's gonna get hit with on their tax bill, especially when we're looking at 18 million to fix Morton Street, 15 to do Girdleston, Towson, and Pico. And, I mean, we need every dollar and cent we can save at this point, because it's not in the budget right now. I know we had a good jump start on the 5-year SIP, the 5-year capital investment plan, and I think your team did a great job on that. I think what we need to see, though, is more of those larger projects, not really spread over time, but like what the total's gonna cost us in the next probably 10 years instead of just 5 years. We're being totally inundated with the water, and if we don't do something fast, we might not have a place to invest any capital in 10 years. So, anything you can do to further that would be greatly appreciated. I know that Vice President Belcher mentioned it. Councilor Aiello mentions the economic impact study all the time. Those are some things that we really need to be able to make informed decisions, so. Appreciate it. Thank you.
1 minute, Councilor Aiello.
And just want to reconfirm, talked about the re-up in the MVP application for Belle Isle and Morton Street. We're also going to do the same thing for,
Yeah, the 400,000.
for Fisherman's Bend
Yeah,
Marsh
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
That's all.
And just to give a little cost, I mean, people are talking about cost a little bit. For example, I don't think we have a price for Girdlestone yet. That was not priced out at $15 million. Correct. So there is no price yet on Girdlestone.
So the design estimate is usually 10% of construction. What was the design estimate?
Design estimate was 465,000.
That would be
So that's a
4.6.
$5 million project.
Right, not
And then on
15. I
Pico,
think you said 15 million.
what was Pico's design?
They were both in that, but.
So we're looking at about 10 million, not 15.
Anyway, looking at
Yeah.
cost, just to give people an idea of what you're talking about, and, talk about MVP grants and this, that, and the other thing. For example, potentially Morton Banks cost somewhere, potentially, between 12 and 18 million. At 12, it's roughly, if you did a debt exclusion, right, which we would have to do for this, it would be roughly $171 a year for 20 years.
That's 12 million today, though, Mr. President.
I'm giving
If
some
you-
rough numbers to give
if you-
people an example.
if you're looking at the
Councilor
permitting
Tassinari, you're
time,
out of
though.
order, please.
If you're looking at the permitting time, you're gonna be hit with inflation too. So 12 million today could be 18 3 years from now.
Well, I certainly didn't hope it would go from 12 to 18 in 3 years, but, because that would be pretty substantial inflation, but.
That's what happened in the last 3
Similar
years.
to the last 3 or 4, then we might be seeing
Yeah.
that, but. Just
Respectfully.
To give people a ballpark figure of what we're talking about, and talking about MVP grant, talking about 3A, because there's been a lot of things thrown out. If you were today to go and get a $12 million debt exclusion, you're talking roughly $171 a year for 20 years. Still a lot of money. If you did not get the MVP grant and it was 1.2 million, and we had to add that to the bond, so now instead of whatever, it's $1 million more, that would raise your cost approximately $11.50. Just to give people an idea, but we do have an awful lot. We have upwards of, in the teens at Morton Street, we have upwards of 10 or whatever we have at Tylerson, Girdlestone, and Pico. We do have projects. I mean, on a good note, we're, you know, however people take it, we're in a relatively good position to borrow money in terms of bond rating and in terms of the amount of limited debt we have right now. We also have things coming off the books in different years that also help offset that. But I don't think money is going to be a reason as to why we're slowing down, not doing a project on Morton or Tylerson on Girdlestone. I know it's never, ever, and I apologize deeply, it's never, ever as quick as people want and as fast as people want. But I feel pretty confident that everybody up here is committed to trying to do the best we can to alleviate as many problems as we can. Thank you for the town manager's report. I'm gonna go back to.
Council President, if I could, I mean, I want to be clear, like, the reason that you're able to borrow so easily and the reason you have a AA+ rating is because the council's worked hard to build up your reserves, to build up your, capital stabilization fund. All of those items are why you can borrow money and, do it easily. So to, when people are saying we'll just throw money at it, drain the reserves, pay for it now, like, that's not how it's done. It's just, that's short-sighted because you wouldn't be able to borrow for the bigger projects later. It's a drop in the bucket and we need to have those funds there so we can borrow and fix the issues if we can't get the grant money. So I just want to be clear, like, there's a reason why you're well off and why you can do these projects, and that's why. So that's why we don't just take it out of the reserves and take it out of capital stabilization, because you wouldn't be able to borrow the money because you wouldn't get your bond rating and the interest rates would go higher. I mean, it's.
Respectfully, town manager, why don't we then make an emergency motion to fix the Morton Street flooding?
We need a price, you can't, it has to go out to bid, it's gotta get permitted. I mean, there's a whole
Okay.
list of things that have to happen beforehand. You need to know what to bid, Rob. I mean, you can't just haphazardly say we want $20 million. I mean, that would be great, but we've got a $4.9 million override for the school that's coming. We've got a fire station that's
Why,
coming.
why don't we start with some money? Just start with some money.
Again, I'll take direction from the council, Rob, but it's just,
Yeah. I
All right,
understand.
we're going back to committee reports. Economic Development met. Councilor Munson?
Yes, we discussed the air rights of the Feretra development at 50 Somerset Ave, and after some discussion, we decided to vote in favor of the Somerset development getting the air rights to have those balconies. They're at a significant height, so there will be no safety. We did want to make one clause and condition on that recommendation, and that was with the approval of the fire department prior to moving forward.
Okay, thank you for that, and we will, getting back, since Councilor Munson was just speaking, you did make a suggestion at the last meeting, and I encourage you in new business to, if we want to take a quick run around the table, I'd be happy to do that.
Okay,
So
great,
if you can remember that, that would be great. School committee, CDICR?
They have not met since the last meeting, but they did have a successful event at the library. Great thank to everyone who attended. They got other events coming up in the future, but keep an eye out for that in the town manager blog and on the website. But they will meet again in a few weeks.
All right. Yes, yeah, update on policy committees. Board of Appeals, 63, 69 Putnam was continued. 19 Walden was continued. 118 Sunnyside, relief was granted to convert the existing one-family home to a two-family home with an addition to the house and the current garage attachment to the existing home. 145 Bartlett, variance to conform from a two-family dwelling to a three-family dwelling was denied. Planning Board, 67 Woodside, pre-submission to Planning Board site review will be continued for further information as to address variance needed. 63 to 69 Putnam was continued for revision of plans, also awaiting information that will be provided by the Board of Appeals for variances in 181 Winthrop Street. No representation. It was continued, and the Conservation Committee has not met. Old business. Air rights approval for 50 Somerset Ave. Take this a little out of order. So that just came out of committee with a positive recommendation. And this, that the town council approved the air rights of 50 Somerset Ave to include the overhang, parentheses, bump outs, on the front of the building over the sidewalks on Somerset Ave. This did come out of committee with a positive recommendation. Any discussion on this? Councilor, I'm sorry, Councilor Swope.
It's all right. I'm a bit confused about why we continue to give variances, generally speaking, just overall. Because I thought you had to either show harm or something like that. I mean, we're giving variances for parking. We're giving variance, and I see building all over the place, and it's pretty extensive right now. So that has nothing to do with 3A. That's what we're doing, in our own committee. So why is it that you would give that variance?
The overhang? This
Yeah.
can, well, I could let the town manager speak about it, but it's a situation there that's actually kind of unique, and I'll let the town manager speak.
Yeah, well, we ended up, these are just for the small decks that are gonna overhang
Yeah.
over the sidewalk a little. They're required to do it, but it's sort of working with the owner, because when we redid French Square and redid that street, we actually took, to be able to make the swing, we took part of his property. We
For
didn't-
sidewalks.
Yeah, for the sidewalks. So we didn't get permission, so you could make a stink and try to take them back, but they're willing to work with us. And then these easements are sort of, the outcome of that, so we can have the building that he wants without having to forfeit the work that we already did, and, deal with the fact that we did it on top of his property, so. And that was in order to make the swing. I can let Steve talk about that, but that, in order for the fire, for public safety equipment and all the larger trucks to get around there and make the swing.
As I recall, I think you did mention that to me before.
Yeah, I did.
About the,
Yeah.
I was using the sidewalk.
Yeah.
But I'm really.
And this is a small, don't think this is a huge overhang, it's just a small little partition,
It's
just so they
about-
can open the
yeah,
door,
it's-
yeah,
okay.
exactly, yeah.
But I don't know when we can talk about this, but this notion of variance, particularly for parking, is getting to me. So I don't know if it's appropriate here to have a broader discussion about how we can manage variances in general. But I think that would be important, particularly about parking and particularly about size. And so, President Lettieri, can you do that?
Well, right now, we're on this motion right now. We can absolutely discuss at another meeting
Thank you.
about appeals. Vice President Belcher.
Thank you. Either town manager or counselor, can you just tell us, just so it's all there, how high up are they and how far out do they go from the building?
Well, I can speak to it just briefly because we reviewed it last night, but there are, I believe, 3 bump outs in total, and the only one that's actually of any real concern was the one that's right on the corner as you're coming down Somerset, and that was at 16.5 feet. So that's well above the national requirement of, 13, just under 14 feet. So it was more than enough. And as far as trajectory out, he's accurate in saying that it's their property that they're going out on. So it wouldn't cause any safety issues from what we could tell. And that's Pat Costigan, who's a facility manager over at the Deer Island. So he was reviewing it with, the fire tooth comb as well. So it felt like it was a no-brainer.
Councilor Aiello.
The request seems reasonable to me, just given the history and the dimensions going back and forth, so I have no problem supporting it. I just want to be clear, air rights is a tricky thing. We don't have a policy on air rights generally, and that nobody should construe, if this passes, to this sort of infect
Doesn't
any
set
other
precedent.
Yeah,
idea.
it's a non-precedent setting.
Non-precedent setting.
Non-precedent setting, that's better, thank you. So,
Seeing no,
put it in the record, please.
You got it, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
In the minutes.
yeah, please do that. And Seeing no other discussion, this came out of committee with a positive recommendation, does not require a second. I'll take a roll call vote, please.
Counsel Castaneri?
Yes.
Counsel Costigan? Counsel Munson?
Yes.
Counsel DeMarco?
Abstain.
Counsel Aiello?
Yes.
Counsel Swope?
Yes.
Counsel DeRoss? Vice President Belcher?
Yes.
President Lettieri?
Yes.
Thank you.
There was also release and abandonment of a certain right-of-way on Summit Ave. So this was brought before us a couple years ago. We've discussed it back and forth. We discussed right-of-ways, private ways at length last year at council meetings. So the thought from this is that, I believe this is a single residence asking for this, is that correct?
One, yeah,
Yep,
one
I'm
on the
sorry,
line.
Now,
yep.
this private way runs from Summit down to Hutchinson, or does it go all the way to Crest?
It goes to Hutchinson, then there's an alley between two buildings that continues to Crest. Don't have a solid answer if the section on Crest Ave between those buildings is also town property or private. It definitely goes from Hutchinson up to Summit.
And speaking with DPW and getting recommendations from town manager and the DPW director, thoughts, I believe, are that it should be the whole thing or not at all, right? I mean, I think that seems to be, it's hard to shut off a section of a private way and then continue it kind of to nowhere or nowhere to start from. And we've talked about this last year. I believe the sentiment of the council last year was to try to not do this. I believe if we do not have a plan to maintain them, if it becomes a safety hazard, if there's things going on there at night that shouldn't be going on there at night and we can't patrol it and control it, I would much rather release the easement. I think we still need some more information from this, but, you know, I'd like to open it up to the council to see. Right now, the thought is, or the question is, that the council release and abandon all of its rights, titles, and interests in a certain right-of-way located in the lot 27 and 28, shown on the plan recorded in the Suffolk Registry of Deeds, located at the real property address of 76 Summit Ave, known as public travel right-of-way, which is no longer necessary as the path no longer provides access to the public. So that's what is desired. It could be amended to include the whole section. It could be voted down. I'll open it up. Well, I'm not even gonna ask for a recommendation on the motion yet. I'll open it up to Vice President Belcher.
Thank you. So I have a few thoughts on this. This did come up in the council I think the end of last summer. It was referred to the Public Works Committee that never had a chance to meet on it, but what we were supposed to be doing was going around town and cataloging all of these public ways. There's a list that I believe we got from the DPW of several of them, and I spoke with Director Calla to put together kind of a rubric that we could use to look at them and kind of prioritize what needed to be done and what ones were viable for something that we could afford and realistically upkeep and what weren't. And so because that committee never actually met, we didn't complete that work. So I just want to be cautious that in this instance, I think after looking at those stairs there, it would take a lot to bring this public way back into a safe place. But I'm cautious to do this in piecemeal as opposed to looking overall and developing potentially a policy on how we upkeep these public ways. And I think they do serve a very important purpose. People do walk around the town. That does help people get from Summit down to the bus stop at Crest Ave and Jack's, which is one of my favorite places in town. But it's, so I think they do have an important purpose, but I also understand these folks have been waiting a long time for an answer from us. But if we could just wait a little longer and meet with that Public Works Subcommittee, I would really like to go over this in greater detail before we vote in the dark on it.
And we do have the lawyer for the person petitioning this on Zoom who would like to speak on it.
Yes, thank you. That's greatly appreciated. Thank you for having me tonight. I would turn my video. I
You're
guess
Winthrop
with the
president.
folks' permission. I don't know if you guys want to allow that or if you just want me to proceed like this. But in any event,
Just please state your name and reason for you being here. Who you're representing.
Yep, just getting to that. So my name's Eugene Kaczynski. I'm an attorney in Dedham, Mass. I represent Bill and Gina Edgett. They're the owners of the real property located at 76 Summit Avenue in Winthrop. My clients acquired this property in 2020, and this is their primary residence. So the western boundary of their property, or if you were looking at their house at Summit Ave, it would be on the left-hand side, is 10-foot strip of concrete land.
Not a town resident.
About 5 feet of this exists in their property.
Excuse me 1 second, I apologize. Can I have a motion to let someone speak?
Motion allowing to speak.
Motion by Vice President, it is only during
Second.
public comment. By Vice President Belcher, second by Councilor Tassinari. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No, the ayes have it. Yes, I'm sorry, continue, please.
Sure, no need to apologize. And the other 5 feet of this exists in the real property located at 70 Summit Ave. My client's neighbors. So, as I think we've already recognized and gotten to, this concrete strip of land is a right-of-way in favor of the town of Winthrop. I found the first reference in a lot split back in 1902. You can find it in Indy there. Further, it's paved, and it appears to have provided pedestrian access to an old train station which ran from 1888 to 1940. It's my understanding that this train ceased operating in 1940. There's been no new train station, so at least that public purpose of the right-of-way has been frustrated. And, it seems to be my client's position that there really is no further public purpose going on here. Instead, my clients are dealing with a lot of issues regarding loitering, regarding drug use, and a lot of garbage that's being left behind, sort of spilling onto their property. Makes them nervous when people loiter there. They're kind of sort of going over and maintaining this thing. It's my understanding that the police are actually sort of frequently called to this area, really sort of frustrating, the town's resources. It's our position that, its current use isn't really good for my clients, and it's also not good for the town. They and the neighbor at 70 would eventually like to turn this into a shared driveway so they can park on the driveway. This would remove some of the cars from the street, allow for more parking on the street. Ultimately, I do think this would be a safer and more practical use of the property. Council likely recognizes that under Mass General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 15, there is a mechanism by which you can sort of abandon this right-of-way, in which case my clients would begin to take care of it, build that driveway, and ultimately put it to what we think is a better purpose.
Thank you very much, I appreciate your time.
I have a comment.
You'll be recognized. Bob,
Please.
just please, let me go. All right, we don't have a motion yet on the floor. Can we have a motion to open up for discussion? Motion by Vice President Belcher, second by Councilor Tassinari. Okay, so this is now a motion on the floor. We've heard comments from the lawyer. We have had a question from Vice President Belcher requesting additional time. This is the first time this is coming before us for a vote tonight. You can use council privilege if you choose to put this off one meeting. If you choose to do that, in the meantime, we would again, for the 6th time, ask the subcommittee to meet on this, to go over it in detail, and come back with a recommendation. Is that what you choose to do? Or do you want to continue?
I don't want to end discussion.
Okay. Councilor DeMarco.
So, for the record, I live on Crest Ave, Revere Street, and me and my daughter walk that path every single day. That's our walking path. Me and Haley, that's what we do. Okay? Do not take history away from Winthrop. Okay? Our history, yes, the trains ended in 1940. He's absolutely right about that. Okay? but we still have the walking paths from the top of the Highlands down to Winthrop Street, from Summit Ave. That's our history. That's what we are. All right? We want to get rid of that? Are you kidding me? That's all I have to say.
Counselor Swope.
I walked that path today. I didn't see trash. I mean, it seemed fine to me. I think Counselor Belcher is absolutely right. We should take all the paths and we should figure out which ones are most important for people that, what's the traffic like? What have the police reports been really? I don't know if there have been a lot of police reports. There may have been. I don't know. For sure. But to see if those paths are not, which ones are more viable. For example, going down to Crest Avenue where there is a lot of business, or some business, is, I think, kind of, it'd be nice. So are there some that we should keep, some that we should just abandon? And if we do abandon them, I have a question about that. Does someone buy that property? When we say we give it up.
We abandoned the easement.
We abandoned the easement, it's their property.
It's their, they already own it.
They already
Oh,
own
they
the
already own
property,
it.
yes.
Okay, I didn't know. I thought the town owned some of these, no?
Nope.
No, okay. So I would recommend that we take them all as a group with the town manager, figure out what we should do with all of them and see which ones that are maybe more viable than others.
Vice President Belcher.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up. I don't want to delay this one much longer, but I think it's important to look at this one as an example. So that's why I'm a little hesitant to want to vote on it now, but with the caveat that this subcommittee needs to meet before the next meeting and have a recommendation ready at the next meeting. We know municipal government is slow as molasses, and we don't want to slow it down anymore, so.
I'm using my council privilege. Let's put it off.
Getting there. Why don't you let us speak?
All right, there's been a council privilege request. This has been put off until the next meeting. It will be voted on at the next meeting. Morton and Bank Street remains on the agenda. We've discussed it. Is there anything further to discuss? I want to keep it on the agenda. We hope, we'll be going over the meeting calendar. Sorry?
No, nothing more than I have, and I'll give the council.
We will
certainly the
maintain
neighbors an
this
update
on
once
the
we get
agenda. We
sandbag
will
delivery done.
have,
We would like someone to at least be accountable to us. And I think everybody that's here from Morton and Bank Street should at least stand so you know how many people are here tonight for it. Because all of the people that are here have lost burners, water heaters, cars. We can't get in and out of our houses. I just want you to know, and this is only a handful, but I think everybody should stand so they know who you are and what you've lost. And Denise, if you want to say something, say it now.
Well, I'm a little disappointed
you
because
can't, you have to wait till public comment. You
Sorry,
can't
sorry.
really talk now, but I appreciate you. Thank you.
I'll be your point person. If we could get one or two people to be my point person, that would be ideal.
Okay. New business, we're going to, town council appropriate $1.1 million to pay the cost to replace water meters, exercise and water valves. That's gonna be referred to finance. Town council appropriate $980,000 to pay the cost of replacing lead line water service. That will be referred to finance. Now we're looking at the meeting schedule. We are meeting on the 15th. There is probably going to be the public forum on the 15th. Our next scheduled meeting would be November 5th. November 5th is the election. We will not be meeting on November 5th. The following meeting after that would be November 19th. If we postpone this later in November, we're going to go 4 weeks without a meeting. What I would suggest is that we abandon council rules for this meeting. We do not have the meeting on November 5th and instead have it on October 29th. That would just continue meeting every 2 weeks. We would have one meeting in November, which would be the 16th. The first week in November is the election, and then we're into Thanksgiving towards the end of the month. So if somebody would make a motion. Sorry?
The 19th, not the 16th,
The
right?
19th, right, would be the meeting in November.
So, Jim, just
So-
to be clear, what's the next meeting then? Would be-
Our next scheduled meeting is the 15th. That will be the
October.
fall forum, correct. That will take place at the senior center. The meeting will be at 6. The council meeting will be immediately after that. Okay, so the motion would be to suspend council rules for the November 5th meeting, change the November 5th meeting to October 29th. There's a motion by Councilor DeMarco, second by Vice President Belcher. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no, the ayes have it. And the second scheduled meeting in November will stay at the 19th. The only scheduled meeting in November. And I'm sorry, public comment is back.
So I just,
Just name and precinct, I'm sorry.
My name is Denise Kress, and I'm in precinct 2.
Thank you.
Glad to meet you. I sent a letter to many members of the town council that I could find and all that sort of stuff. A lot of the emails were wrong. It got sent back and forth to me multiple times. But I got no response from anyone in the town with my email, with the pictures and the concerns representing things in Morton Street. The people that did respond to me were the Woods Hole group, the Mystic River group, and the other one, the Belle Isle group. And Belle Isle group asked me for my pictures, if I could use them for a grant that they were looking for. So I think that we just have some level of frustration that this has been happening since, well, 2018.
That was the big.
It's a nightmare,
That's what I
twice.
used.
But anyway,
1990.
we have, offered different solutions. We know that the proposals that were put forward, were not accepted. And it sounded like from what was in the transcript, it was because we weren't clear enough about what our action was. Whether that's true or not, I can't speak to it. All I'm saying is that was what I read in the transcript. So, we just want to know who we can talk to, and that we get communication on a regular basis with some timelines, so we know whether it's time for us to move, or, what we're gonna do to be able to stay without living with constant anxiety.
Thank you.
Just
Yeah.
one, very quick.
Yes.
I forgot to say, regarding speeding that I was talking about, as opposed to water at the time, could we have the police or whomever puts those 25-mile-an-hour speed limits that are.
There's a stop sign right at the bottom of my street, and
But
they go
those-
right through that.
Those on Pleasant Street, they really work. As far as I'm concerned, it slows me down, it slows everybody down. And why couldn't we just have a couple of those, one out at Banks and one at the top of Morton? Because everybody's flying there all the time. It isn't just because of water. It's just too fast.
No, I do agree with the 25 mile, but during the water, I mean, even 25 is too much. So you have to go with a trickle.
Going through that at 25 would be rough.
Right, it would be rough for everybody, but that has to be.
Going through it at all is not good for moving.
I'll look into
It
putting a
sounds kinda
sign
fun,
down there for
actually.
you. Thank you. Yes.
Maureen McAdams, 39 Seaview Ave, Precinct 5. I've heard a lot about other parts of the town, and one of the parts of town that gets overlooked greatly is Fisherman's Bend. In my row of homes, there are 8 homes that have been flooded 3 times this year. The water's up over my knees. And those trenches are so filled to capacity with grass that they can't drain on the tides. I heard Mr. Marino say that they're gonna come and do something about that, but my concern is waiting until the winter. That'll freeze, I'll have ice, and I will have debris. There's so much stuff in there that nothing is moving at all right now. We had over 70 signatures of people that wanted some attention. Seaview Ave, Sunnyside Ave, Corinna Path. I've lost water heaters, I've lost 3 washing machines, I've lost 3 dryers, I've lost a car. We need some help. And we need it right away before the winter sets in. I can't wait for it to be all frozen over and be a bigger mess with icebergs. Can you please try and get them to come sooner rather than later, not wait till the winter? Can you please?
Yes, I'm gonna call, we're waiting on the Army Corps, they can't, the state agency won't do it without permission. So they need
Okay.
permission from the
They
Army
did
Corps of
it
Engineers.
before, so-
With the permission from the Army Corps because it was titled. And they
Okay.
need permission to do it again because it's been so long. So that's all they're waiting on. As soon as they get it, they will go in and do the work.
All right.
All right?
We're not gonna wait till the middle of February when we have 4 more storms.
I hope not. I'll certainly put more calls in, but that's what they're
Okay,
waiting on.
Please do that.
Yes, Colleen?
Colleen Costa, 84 Bank Street. Jim, can we please get the committee to at least agree to work on this while you're waiting for federal funding? I get, we have to wait for that, but we can't be left. We have a 93-year-old woman across the street from us, and we're all responsible for her. She can't get out. She's been in there and she can't get out. We were left for dead in 18. And we've been left for dead many a time, which is great. I moved my electricity up. I can't get my boiler up. They won't bring it up. This is out of control now.
No, and again, I'm not
I
putting
know
words in
about the
Council Matz's mouth, but
valve.
he
I
will
know
be your
about the
point
valve.
person.
But
Right, we
we
will.
gotta start doing something about it. I get we need the federal funding, but we gotta get on that. Because that will help us not to flood so greatly. She's gone through 3 burners. Abbott's not gonna pay for another burner for that lady. Is the town of Winthrop gonna? Because that poor woman has nothing.
Flood
You know,
insurance
and-
doesn't even pay for it.
Right.
$8,000 a year flood insurance doesn't
And
pay
they
for it.
don't pay, so,
Basically.
you know, we need help. And I feel for you, I do, because you're in the same boat as us. I get it, I've
We're
lost
directly
9,
on the ocean.
so are we, so are we. You know, I do, I feel for you,
No.
but we need help. I don't wanna fight with you, I didn't come here for that.
No,
I
we
came here to
understand
let
that,
you
we're
know-
appreciative of that.
No,
We-
I came here to let you know that this poor guy bought a house and he didn't know what happened. He had no cars, no burners, no nothing. And his flood insurance didn't pay for anything. He's on Wilshire. The water is going up now when it floods. It's going up the streets. So it's not just Banks and Morton anymore. She's down the other end of Banks, down by the gym, and she was flooded completely. Like, it's not getting any better.
Thank you, Colleen.
Just want you to know.
Yes.
Lisa Pelletier, 154 Morton Street, precinct 2. In addition to the flooding being an issue for the people who live on the street, I just want to point out that during the floods, I've had to replace oil tanks that have actually tipped and spilled oil, which is right on the marsh, which I was told potentially could lead to a bigger environmental issue. So the town should obviously be concerned with the citizens and their safety, but it is leading to other larger concerns that could potentially be exponentially much more, expensive, time-consuming to clean up if that kind of material's getting into the marsh.
Thank you. Did you have, yes.
Jeanette Roy, Precinct 1. I live right along there on Bank Street. We have flooding. I've seen my husband's fished from my front porch. Literally, we've had dead fish in our front yard.
The canoe guy next door.
We have someone who kayaks when it happens. I had a refrigerator float
Oh, yeah, it's in
from
my yard.
someone's down
It was
the
in my
street to my front yard. I had someone's deck float to my front, on the street in the front yard. And I know everyone was working at their hardest to try to get things resolved, but those things stay there for a long, several days, okay? And that is just, that particular instance of the refrigerator and the deck was a beautiful, that was a beautiful sunny day. There was nothing we could have predicted. I also have friends who went to the gym that day and lost their car. So they were just going to the gym, they don't live in that area, but they lost their vehicle because they parked near my house and it was gone. So this is not something, to the environmental cause, that's a huge one. But this is also people who are going to patronize that gym. Like, they could go in for a workout and come out with no vehicle, which is exactly what happened to a friend of mine. It's a pretty serious situation, and we are just the beginning. If we can't figure out a way to cover what's happening here, the rest of the community is gonna be severely affected by it. We need to come up with solutions now because all of our houses, we're the first in the line of houses that are gonna get lost. we are not the last in line of houses that will get lost. You know, and I think like that, this community is a beautiful community, it's a seaside community, we know that there's inherent dangers by being in the seaside community, but we need to take precautions if we want a community. So that's my big push for this. I think it's really, I know it's a small group of us who live along that street, but we're just the beginning of what's gonna be everyone else's, you know, reality in just a few years. And then in terms of the driving side of it, one thing that I do think could possibly slow down traffic, this is a thing that is an irk for me as a regular resident there, is a stop sign at the end of Winthrop Street. At the end of Winthrop, because there is not one. People come zooming down Winthrop Street onto Banks and down Morton so quickly. And I have kids that cross the street and I'm quite literally afraid they'll get hit by a car because of how quickly they go by. And so when you add that to people zooming around a corner with a flooded street and then jamming on their brakes, you know, I mean, it's just a really dangerous situation over there, and it's unfortunate, and it's a great little community that we have, and you know, we want to keep it.
Thank you.
Jim, the stop sign that they have at Morton, at Governor's, they can't even see it. They don't stop. It's covered by a phone pole. That, I don't know why that stop sign's there. Somebody went down and took the greenery off it that grew over it. But it's useless.
Okay, Mr. Dow.
Is this still a comment period?
It is.
Thank you. Jack Dow, Precinct 1. There's no need for anybody going fast on Wooden Street. Possibly 2 or 3 speed bumps. When I see a speed bump, I go slow. So maybe everybody else should go slow too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Annie Ferrara, Precinct 3. I want to pivot from flood. I'm so sorry for everything you guys go through. That sucks. But I want to pivot to the school override. We briefly mentioned it, very briefly, when we talked about the school department report. But I think it's very important. And when you guys, thank you for putting it on the ballot this December. You unanimously passed that, so thank you. Jim, I think you mentioned that you would have Town Manager Marino put some educational materials together or some kind of mailing or some kind of literature so that the town would know, like, why we're doing an override and, like, just to see, I guess my question is the town putting any education out towards it? Or I am on the steering committee, we are working towards it. Yes, for Winthrop Kids, follow us on Facebook, go to our website. But I just wanted to see if there was any support from the town via education, just like you guys are surveying for the fire station, to see if there was any support for the override.
Myself and the town manager, along with the superintendent, will be doing a show on CAT, a couple of shows to just, and again, we're not, we can't use our position to subvert for one, but we want to educate people,
Yeah,
right? We just want to tell people what the money's for, why they need it, how much it's going to cost them, and what they're going to get from it, right? So we are absolutely going to be doing that in the very near future.
Okay, so it's just shows, not like mailing or anything?
No,
I'm just
we
trying
can't
to-
do a mailing, we can't, you know, we could do informational, again, we could do informational stuff. I did a meeting here last week, informational meeting about the override, just to, because you're 100% right, people don't understand, it's very difficult to understand, and it's much more difficult to understand a school override than a town override, because a town override is very easy to itemize, and you could get down to the last nickel. Schools are much more complicated, there's much more involved, there's a lot of unfunded mandates and such that people don't understand about. So it's good to get education, and that's all we've ever asked, is that people vote with education. You know, you can't tell somebody how to vote, and there are people that just absolutely can't afford it, and that's 100% understandable. But you just want to be able to vote knowing what you're voting for, right? And that's how you should vote on any issue.
Yep, thank you.
Anything on Zoom, Denise?
No.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just going to get, oh, I'm sorry.
One more comment. I have a house that is next to me that's been on the market for almost 9 months. Because of the cost of flood insurance and the number of times that that house is flooded, it can't sell. I've worked all my life, 3 jobs sometimes, in order to have a house. If I want to sell it, I should have the ability to sell it. I'm paying over $4,000 for flood insurance. The house to the other side of me, the lally columns in the cellar have totally rusted out from the amount of salt water that has gone into that cellar. So now she has to do a whole new foundation. We need some kind of relief. The not to mention, we have surge water that's coming in on those tides when they come into our house. And we have a lot of erosion on the coast. We've had several seawalls at the bottom of the hillsides on Washington Ave that have just totally eroded into the water. So now we have the debris from the walls floating on that tide. We need help.
Thank you. And I just want to go back to Council Munson. I'm just going to quickly go around the table. If anybody wants to, there's no force here. If anybody wants to give a comment on, and I know Council Tessanelli already said it earlier, but if you just want
I'll
to
say
give
it
a
again, yeah,
comment
sure.
on fire station.
Sure, I'm in favor of the Walden Street location. I'm in favor of the price tag being lower than on Pauline Street. Leaving Pauline Street up for economic opportunity. And I think, like I said a minute ago, every dollar we can not bond out or override at this point in time is gonna allow us to do something for the rest of the town that is inundated with water, so.
Thank you. Council Munson.
I'll reiterate what I said before. I mean, I'm in favor with doing what the people want, but if I had to make a decision, I would go with the Walden Street location. I would say, for the same reasons I said before, the opportunity cost. I think that Pauline Street presents an opportunity to have a lot of great things happen, and potentially, if you dream enough, you can make things come true, but it'd be awesome to have a community center there, and it would be awesome to have some, another place for these middle school kids to be able to play. Right now, they don't have a good place to play. I mean, the high school was built without enough room for the kids to play, so I think we need to make sure that they have space in that area. And I hate to say it, but long-term thinking, you don't know, we may need another school. We may need another school, so leaving that space open and putting the firehouse on Walden makes sense. I will say one last thing though. I think that as part of the, build out, we really should manage the flooding right in front of the pillar house. I think that Walden Street shouldn't be negated during crisis, because we didn't think ahead. So if we're 4,000 shy of the Pauline Street development proposal, we should put some of that money, we should put some money towards making sure that that is an easy form of egress.
Vice President Belcher.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what the survey results are. We need a fire station so badly that at this point, after working on the last firehouse committee, want it wherever people will want it. I'm leaning towards Walden Street as my personal opinion, but I'm fully ready to support whatever the people are ready to support.
Councilor DeMarco.
Yeah, I'm also in favor of the Walden Street location, and I have to give a note to former councilor Mike Lacerto, who was the first person who came up with this location. So I want to give him some respect on that. But that's the place I think it should be, but I'm going to let the voters decide.
Councilor Aiello.
I'm also in favor of Walden Street. I think the economic opportunity on the middle school, plus the great uncertainty about what's in those buildings and what we get into when we start demolishing some of those buildings, can really drive the price tag, as well as the fact that we've begun to get support from the recent housing bill. We got $2 million to do some infrastructure there, and we have a request in for a federal grant to help us with some of the infrastructure at the middle school site to pay for those kinds of things through Catherine Clark's office. We finally have a little momentum there for a nice mixed-use element.
Councilor Swope.
Nothing more to add.
Thank you, and I will say that I am also in favor of the Walden Street project. I think that, getting back, I think it was Councilor Munson who mentioned on the flooding, part of the project would entail putting an underground storage unit for excess water at the site on Walden Street. That would take most of the water coming down the hill from the ATC. That would help alleviate, it wouldn't control, but it would help alleviate a lot of the flooding that happens in the parking lot. I think it's also good for the Pillar House residents. It's a little quieter for them than basketball. Relocating the basketball courts, I think, is a better use across the street also. Also with economic development, I think putting a fire station at the top of the hill where the current middle school site is right now, I think it could be much better served for development there, just in terms of 4 or 5 townhouse units there that would complete that neighborhood off, give them a closed neighborhood and some, focal point away from whatever will hopefully go soon where that middle school site is. Obviously, the cost is also a plus, but I think just in terms of, listening to the experts, right? I'm not an expert on locations and stuff, but I listen to the fire department and see what they think is the right idea. Vice President Belcher said it earlier, the first thing, obviously, and I do think the majority of the town does agree that there is a severe need for a firehouse. We've established that in so many ways. But again, listening to the fire chief and listening to the staff and getting the opinions from them too, I think we have to take that into account too, because we might all want something for various reasons, but I want to make sure the people that are using it understand and could better tell me why that's a better location than the middle school or such. So I am also in favor of
Mr. President, can you
Walden
mention,
Street.
can you speak to the baseball field and what would happen to that? And you may be more versed in it than I am.
Well, again, the proposed thought here is to move the basketball courts, because we do believe that basketball courts are incredibly important. They've been in Winthrop for a ridiculously long period of time. They're used a lot. It was mentioned earlier that there isn't a ton of areas to play basketball in particular, and they would be moved across the street where the current baseball field is. That field gets very little playing time from Winthrop children. One of my pet peeves has always been that field, if it is used by Winthrop, it's used by the JV baseball team. I look at JV hockey, and they use the same rink as the varsity hockey. I look at football, they use the same field as football. You look at softball, they use the same field. Why shouldn't kids playing JV baseball have the same opportunity to play in a beautiful field down at Veterans Field near the high school? A lot of that is done for financial reasons, right? Because it's all about transportation, and if we're playing Saugus, it's easier for Saugus to bring their varsity and JV down at the same time. So you can't play 2 games in one night after school because of the lights, and there's no lights down there, so one plays here. I've talked to the school about it, talked to the athletic department about it, and thought that it would be worth the investment to be able to, if Saugus is playing here, bring the varsity down, but let the JV go to Saugus and play their JV team on their nice field and turn it around. So I think it would be a better use of that space. I think it would also open up potentially a little more green space, because the basketball courts would take up less physical land than the baseball field. So that's the plan. The basketball courts are a very important piece of this. It's not something that we're gonna do down the road. It's something that we're gonna do in conjunction, and it's actually part of the project.
Thank you.
We do have a lot of public relations here, but first I do want to say tomorrow, I know the town clerk's office will be represented by Karen Chavez, and thank her for everything she does, but even for this now, something new, get down voter registration. Thank you, Karen, for everything you do. But there'll be a voter registration at the high school, I believe, tomorrow, so, and Karen will be manning the table down there, so I encourage high school students to get involved, start at an early age, register to vote, and if you want to be able to come and bitch about whatever you want, or say good things about it, you need to be able to say that, you know what, I voted one way or the other, and,
Do you still need more volunteers?
For tomorrow, no, it's a one-man show tomorrow.
No, I meant for the election.
I don't believe so. I think Marilyn told me
we're good.
is
Yeah, we're
people
good.
on a wait list now.
Yeah, we're good.
We're expecting,
Good.
we're
Good.
expecting upwards of a little over 9,000 people voting in the town of Winthrop.
Wow.
Just to give it in context, I think the last town election, there was roughly 3,000.
Yeah.
So it will be a heavily attended election. October 3rd, which is Thursday, Winthrop Recovery Event. That was supposed to be last week. Because of weather, it was moved to this Thursday. It starts at Town Hall, goes down to the center. I encourage people to attend. It's very worthy, and it's a great program. October 5th, there'll be a flu walking clinic at 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Winthrop Senior Center. Also on September 5th. That one's a little old.
No, 9 to 5.
Oh, 9 to
Tuesday,
5.
9 to 5.
Oh, okay, so flu vaccines are Tuesday, 9 to 5, not September 5th, 9 to 5 at the E.B. Newton. Call to register, and that is encouraged. The phone number is 617-535. No, that number's wrong.
Sorry, 539.
There's no number there. 617-539-5837. October 6th, St. John's Episcopal Church will have a blessing of the animals at 5:30 PM. October 12th, Parks and Rec Fall Fair Craft Show, 11 to 3 PM at Ingleside Park. October 13th and 27th will be the last days this season for the Winthrop Farmers Market at Ingleside Park, 9 AM to 1. It's been a great event all year, and I encourage people to go to the last two. October 19th, early voting begins at Town Hall during business hours, including Saturday, October 19th, and Saturday, October 26th. And October 29th, 2024, we'll be having a town council meeting instead of November 5th. October 15th, which is our next scheduled meeting, will be the fall forum. We have 2 times during the year that we're ordered by the charter to have 2 events. One is the spring forum, one is the fall forum. The spring forum is more on finance, the fall forum is more on services provided by the town. So that will be at 6 PM at the senior center on October 15th. Is there a motion? Motion by
Motion
Vice
to
President
adjourn.
Belcher, second by Councilor DeMarco. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Meeting adjourned.